PowerPoint or anything because I didn't really want to use technology for this presentation, so I have my notes. But screens. This is a world my generation has grown up hearing. In fact, some may even call us the screen generation. But I want to take a step back from my generation and think about yours. So I want to ask you to raise your hand if you own some form of technology. Exactly. Raise your hand if you have at least one social media account, whether that's for business or personal use. Raise your hand if you have used technology at least once today. And finally, raise your hand if you have technology currently with you. So we live in a world where there is an abundance of technology. It's more common to find someone staring intently at a screen than it is to find someone reading a book in a park. Technology is all around us, whether it be iPads in schools, social media accounts, or even listening to music. As we learn to accept our rapidly advancing technology, it's easy to forget that everyone has become absorbed, not just your teenager at home. So often, people categorize teens as having a problem with technology. It's completely normal and understandable. However, there have been new forms of technology for every generation. Take the 80s, for example. Having your own telephone line was a big deal, and people would sit around for hours talking on the phone to their friends. Doesn't that sound familiar? In fact, even in the 50s, people would stay up late watching television, whether it be black and white or turned to color. And yes, us teenagers use social media, which is so different than a telephone line, but it's the same concept. A concept that's been repeating for generations. There has always been some new form of technology youth have engaged in. And previous generations, like your parents, haven't fully understood this. However, the difference here is that it's not only teens who engage in these new forms of technologies now. Everyone is. To put this into perspective, 48.6% of millennials have a social media account. And I know, they're the stereotypical lazy generation, so of course they have social media accounts. But 48.8% of Generation X members have social media as well, proving this has become a norm in itself. And not to forget the baby boomers, who have a staggering 26.4% on social media, which is very interesting, seeing how most people say that their grandparents are very horrible with social media, and clearly a lot have it. What's really interesting here, though, is that teens are normally at fault for using a lot of technology, for being on their screens all the time. And I find this interesting because we didn't create phones. We didn't program Instagram. We didn't put a phone in our own hand. We didn't sell it to ourselves. Your generation did. We didn't do it. This wasn't quite our doing. We are on technology, and we've grown up in a world where this is how we function and live, but we've had to learn to survive this way. We didn't make this decision. And it's very interesting because most people don't realize this as they begin to blame teens for this. And even now, we're still normally said to be at fault of being on our screens. I remember a few years ago, I went to my old elementary school to see a technology presentation. And I had a lot of problems with this video, but one of them being how it portrayed teens as having this massive problem with technology to the fact where they could no longer connect with people and understand what's going on in their world. But what the worst part of this is that this mother had handed her daughter a phone, logged her into Instagram, and then complained that she used them. It was very hypocritical because this child is growing up in a world where this is how it functions. I look around me, and all the adults are on their phones. And so I pull out mine, and I'm told to put it away and don't be on your screen. And it's always very baffling because this is how our world has begun to function. And what sets us apart here, though, is that while my generation is using technology, I mean, an iPad was thrust into my hand a few years ago for school, and we're expected to use them, we didn't get to decide this. We didn't get a choice in this matter. You got to choose to have technology in this world, but we have to adapt to it. We have to live with this. An interesting thing about our generation is that we're aware of this. We know what we're using our technology for. We know how to cite a credible source. Yes, we do. We have to. And most of all, we are able to take ownership. We know that, yes, sometimes we do have a problem. Sometimes we are on technology a lot, and we do scroll through social media. But I can't tell you how many times my peers have talked to me and just said, yeah, I'm really working on this. It's really hard, and I'm trying to fix it. And that's something I feel like people don't realize. We're all on technology. Normally teens are blamed for it because they're the teenagers, so of course they're trying to separate and rebel, but really they're not. I mean, who has a job that requires a screen? I know I have to use a screen every day at school. Who spent at least 2 hours on a screen today, whether that be working or personal use? Did anyone spend at least 4? Is anyone over 6? We're all using technology, and it's really important to be aware of this. And this is something I think most people struggle with, but we're learning. We're trying to adapt. And because we haven't had a choice in this matter, we've learned to adapt. We must learn to live in this world. You created this world, and it's our job to learn how to live in it. We're trying to adapt. We're really working hard. So the next time you find yourself beginning to blame or complain about a teenager on their phone or a screen or spending way too much time on that iPad game for school, I want you to think, because you were a teenager once, and we didn't make this choice. We didn't build this world. We have to live in it. Thank you.